Section 39 of the Algonquin Legends of New England. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mary in Arkansas. The Algonquin Legends of New England, or Myths and Folklore of the Micmac, Passamaquoddy, and Penobscot tribes by Charles Godfrey Leland. Section 39. Tumilkunteu, or the Broken Wing, Micmac legend. An Indian family lived on the seashore. They had 2 sons. The eldest of these was married, and had many small children. They lived by fishing. They chiefly caught eels. It came to pass that the weather was so stormy that they could not fish. The wind blew terribly night and day. The waves were like dancing hills. Hunger made them fierce. One day the father told his boys to walk along the shore and see if no fish had been cast on the beach. A young man went. He went far along, and as he went the wind was ever worse. It blew so fiercely that he could hardly stand. It seemed to come from a point of land. He resolved to pass it, and when there he saw the cause of the tempest. Upon a Quisopskeek, a high and rocky ledge, a bold cliff, but surrounded by the water, sat the Wind Bird, or Storm Sagamore himself, flapping his wings and thereby raising all the wind. Then the young man, who was brave and wise, resolved to outwit the wind god, and approaching him and addressing him as Nikalskamich, my grandfather, he inquired, "Are you cold?" And he answered, "Nay." But the young man insisted that he must be suffering, and offered to carry him on his back to the mainland. Footnote: it would appear that while the bird flapped his wings he did not fly. I believe this was the same with the Norse Hurrasvelgr. End footnote. And the offer being accepted, he carried the mighty bird from one weedy, slippery rock to another, up and down, jumping anon and wading through the pools. But at the last rock he, with full intention, stumbled and fell as if by accident, but managed it so well as to break one of the wings of the eagle, as he indeed meant to do. Yet he made a great show of being very sorry, and having set the wing, bade the bird keep quiet, and not move his wings for many days. Not till the wound was healed should he stir them. " Sit still, Nitixamich," he said, " and I will bring you food. I will be attentive. You shall want nothing." And the god sat still. There was a calm on the water. No leaves moved in the forest. There was no wind in all the world. The young man went home. There was not a breeze. The canoe went smoothly over the sea. The eels could be seen in the depths. The Indians caught fish by thousands. Never before had they caught so many. And the sagamore of the birds sat still. The wind bird waited to get well. The young man fed him every day. There can be too much of what is good. Good turns to evil, sweet to sour. After many days of quiet calm, the sea was covered with ogakpigik, a scum which is caused by sickness among the fish, and which is thrown off by them, for they suffer in still water. Then the fisherman can no longer look down into the sea. Then he cannot use the spear. Then the young man, examining the wing of the storm bird, said, " Grandfather, it is much better. Move it but a little now, that I may see." So he moved it. He gave a flap, and lo, a slight ripple passed over the surface of the sleeping sea. And striking lightly with his wings, again there came a breeze, and the ogapigik, or the scum, was blown away, and the Indians fished again, and all was well. So they had the Wind Bird for a friend, and the sea was smooth or stormy as they willed. But these Indians wished for more than they could manage. They grew tired of catching small fish. They wanted whales. " Let us go and catch the Bootup," said the elder brother. " How will you take him? " asked the younger. " I will entice him with the Pekugwakon," said the elder, " with my pipe." So he sat by the sea. He played on the pipe. He played, but no whale came. So they went back to their small fishery. This is manifestly the beginning and end of a very ancient Indian mythical tale. The Micmacs have tacked on to it a ridiculous fragment of an indifferent French nursery tale, without an end and without any connection with the Indian beginning. The tradition is probably entirely Eskimo. Among the Greenlanders there is a caste of whale fishers, separate and apart, and this story, in its second stage, was applied to teach ne sortor ultra crepidam, that all should stick to their trades, and that though a sorcerer may rule the winds, it did not follow that he could win the whales. I have spoken before of the curious identity of the Indian storm king, or wind bird, with that of the Norse Hurrasvelgr. When among the Chippewas, west of Lake Superior, I met with a white man who had received the name of Thunderbird from the Indians still further west. The magicians of all countries, be they of Africa, Asia, or North America, are invariably represented by travelers as holding their flocks in subjection, and never being doubted as to power or skill. But there are skeptics or agnostics among the men of woods, as well as among those of civilized cities. There are shrewd fellows who can not only detect impostors, but turn their tricks to their own advantage. An amusing illustration of this is given in the following story. Fishhawk and Scapegrace, Micmac legend. Footnote: Wiskumagwasu and Magwis. The Magwis, or Scapegrace, is a kind of seagull. End footnote. Two men met and talked. One was Fishhawk, the other was Scapegrace. Now the Fishhawk can fly higher than any other ocean bird, and he is proud and particular as to his food. He is only beaten by the eagle. When he dives and takes a fish, the eagle pursues him. He lets it drop. The great sagamore of the bird catches it, but to less than the chief he yields nothing. But the Scapegrace will eat anything. He is heavy in flying, he is slow and of low degree. So when the Scapegrace proposed to the Fishhawk that they should become partners, the proud bird was angry in his heart, but said nothing, as he was crafty, and as it occurred to him that he could punish the other. And this he was the more willing to do because the Scapegrace actually proposed to fly a race with him. So he said, "Let us go together to a certain Indian village." And they went off together. The Fishhawk arrived there far before the other. And on arriving he said, "Beware of him who will come after me. You will know him by these signs. He is ugly and heavy. He will bring with him his own food. It is coarse and common. In fact, it is poison. He wishes to kill you. He will offer it. Do not eat of it, or you will die." Then, having been very well entertained himself, he took his departure. Scapegrace soon appeared, but was treated with great reserve. He offered his food, and the people pretended to eat it, but took good care to quietly throw it away. Then he told the chief that he was seeking a wife, and asked if there were girls to marry in the town. To which the chief replied, "Yes, there is a mother with several daughters, of the Amalchukwick, or Raccoon tribe." He went to see the girls. A bad name had gone before him. One of them stood before the lodge. She saw him and cried, "Bachukwiswichukvit! Scapegrace is coming!" They received him as if he had been sickness. He was welcomed like filth on fine clothes. They cried out, "Lumia! Go home!" He asked the mother if she had daughters. She answered, "Yes." He asked her if she would give him one. She replied, "I will not." So he went his way. Now when he had gone, Fishhawk came again, and asked if Scapegrace had been there. He inquired if all had passed as he predicted. They said it had. Then it occurred to him to pass himself off as a great prophet, a wise magician, well knowing that he could make much of it. So he said, "It is well. Remember that you would have all died but for my foresight. That wizard would have poisoned you all. But have no fear. In future I will watch over you." Then he said to a man of the people that if at any time he should see a large bird flying over the village, it would be an omen of great coming danger. Then he said, "Think of me, call on me, and I will come." So he departed. The man thought it all over for a long time. He was shrewd and wise. He foretold the coming of Scapegrace, he reflected. Now he pretends to be a great sorcerer. We shall see. Sure enough, in a few days he saw a bird flying on high. That, said he, must be the Wiskumagwasu. He called him, and he came. You spoke, he said, of danger to our town. There is great danger. In a few days your town will be attacked by a Kukwes. Footnote. In Passamaquoddy, Kawaka, a cannibal giant who was also a sorcerer. End footnote. Unless you save yourselves, you will all be devoured. What shall we do to be saved? Asked the man. When will he come? In 7 days, replied the Fish Hawk. Before that time you must take to your canoes and flee afar. You must get beyond his reach, but you cannot before that time get beyond the horrible roar of his voice, and all who hear it will drop dead. How can we escape this second danger? Asked the man. You must all close your ears so that you can hear nothing. When the time is over you may return. The man's name was Oskun. Footnote. Micmac. The liver. End footnote. He led the people away. He closed their ears. He did not close his own. Once he heard a faraway whoop. It was not very terrible, but he said nothing. After a time the scouts who were sent out returned. They reported that the Kukwes had departed. They had not even seen him. It was a great escape. The people thought much of Oskun, and they made him their chief. In a few days the Fish Hawk returned. He spoke to Oskun. Did the giant come? He did. You escaped? By following your advice, we did. And in which direction did he go? Footnote. Here the Fish Hawk inadvertently betrays himself. In the Edda, Loki changes himself into a falcon and flies to Jotunheim to make mischief, as usual. Odin also changes himself to a hawk or eagle when he is chased by the giant Suttung. There is a strong Norse color to all this tale. The Fish Hawk is very Loki-like and tricky. End footnote. Surely you, who know so much about him, must know better than we do. Then the Fish Hawk saw that he was found out. He flew away and never returned to the town to play the prophet. He who would cheat must match his words well. As in the preceding tradition, there has been tacked to this a fragment of a very poor French tale about a king, a great city, a royal carriage, and the forest of wild beasts, borrowed from so many old European romances. But what is here given is apparently really Indian, and it shows with spirit and humor how men tricked one another and rose in life by trickery in the days of old. There are naturally contradictory opinions in such a subject as to what constitutes the morality of magic. The old shaman or Manitou regarded witchcraft as wicked. The Roman Catholic has taught the Indian that all sorceries and spells, except his own, are of the devil. Hence it came that I got from 2 Passamaquoddy Indians, next-door neighbors, the following opinions. Tomati. There was once a man who hated another, so he prayed until he became a snake, etc. Another Indian. If a man wanted to be Matualan, he must go without food or sleep, or saying his prayers for 7 days. Yes, that certainly. He must go far into the woods. He must go again when his power was used up. The faith in and fondness for magic were so great among the Algonquins that there is not one even of their most serious histories into which it has not been introduced. The Passamaquoddies will narrate an incident of their wars with the Mohawks. The first time it will all be probable enough, but hear it again when the storyteller has become more trustful, and some of the actors in it or the scene will be sure to end like a Christmas pantomime in fairyland. With them, Basulan covered everything. It entered into every detail of life. I do not think that it was so deeply felt even by the ancient Babylonians or the modern Arabs or Hindus as by our red men. It is no wonder they prefer the Catholic religion to the Protestant. There is a Micmac legend which is so magical and mystical, so inspired with Eskimo shamanism, that it would not be remarkable if it had been originally a sacred song. This is the Giant Magicians. There was once a man and his wife who lived by the sea, far away from other people. They had many children, and they were very poor. One day this couple were in their canoe far from land. They came upon a dense fog. They were quite lost. They heard a noise as of paddles and voices. It drew nearer. They saw dimly a monstrous canoe filled with giants, who greeted the little folk like friends. " Uchkin ta mi witjek, my little brother," said the leader. " Where are you going? "" I am lost in the fog," said the poor Indian, very sadly. " Ah, come with us to our camp," said the giant, who seemed to be a good fellow, if there ever was one. " Truly ye will be well treated, my small friends, for my father is the chief, so be of good cheer." And they, being much amazed at this gentleness, sat still in awe, while two of the giants, each putting a tip of his paddle under their bark, lifted it up and put it into their own, as if it had been a chip. And truly the giants seemed to be as much pleased with the little folk as a boy would be who had found a flying squirrel. Footnote: a story like this of giants in a canoe would very naturally originate about the Bay of Fundy, where, in the dense and frequent fogs, all objects assume greatly exaggerated apparent dimensions. One often beholds there, on the shore, " men as trees walking." End footnote and end of section 39.